Italy. What is this? Stay neutral. Make fondue. Is this a joke focus tree? PDX, are you being for real? Yes, this is for real. The Swiss focus tree. This is brand new content. And this is the main historical path for Switzerland, which we will be looking at today. Let's begin. So the Swiss is a kind of unusual nation because it's got a relatively small standing army and relies mainly on militia, which you'll see incorporated more and more into this focus tree. And of course, everyone talked about gold. And yes, we are going to be talking about stolen goods in Switzerland. Who will be working with? The Allies, the Comintern, the Axis? Well, in this case, no, we'll be working with the neutrals right in the middle. And for the most part, the history of Switzerland will reflect on how you will play the game. Neutrality down the historical path will not be boring, and I think it's really cool what they've decided to do with this, because they're going to incorporate ways of having war be a part of neutrality, which I could never get my head around, because the idea of playing Switzerland and just sitting there and doing nothing the whole game would seem incredibly dull. How are they going to spice it up? Well, let's find out. One of the biggest things about Switzerland you notice from playing it is the leader of the nation is a building, and it's meant to represent that there's no fixed head of state or president of Switzerland. And the local autonomy of the nation is kind of what shapes the democracy of Switzerland. Well, it's not a democracy, it's a constitutional republic. Who cares? Nobody cares. Mountains will be playing a big part in this. Militia will be playing a big part in this. And of course, neutrality will be playing a massive part in this. And here we have the balance of power for Swiss Confederation. It's going to work similar to the balance of power with Italy. So it seems to be a theme with the expansion pack. Balances of power, militia, probably Ethiopia wouldn't be a big surprise. Will it have a balance of power as well in militia? Probably. Will it have mountains? Probably. We'll see. So it looks like you either give power to the cannons, canonial power, or you abandon Swiss autonomy and try and form something different. It looks like it's going to be the way how you get different alt history paths for Switzerland. If you want to abandon the autonomy and the power to the cannons, you can do that. However, there'll be different paths. For instance, maybe a traditional authoritarian government style for Switzerland. Kind of boring, but kind of interesting at the same time. So here you go. Full canonial power, cantonial power, full cantonial power, which reduces war support and reduces the cost for advisors by 100%. So assigning advisors for Switzerland will be free. And it's how you're going to form your government and how you're going to select your kind of leader of your nations. And that leader will give bonuses to your nation. But some of the bonuses I've seen so far with this one are really freaking good. And of course, you've got the full canton system is activated because you have full canonial power. However, Swiss are not kind of pro-war, which reflects on how you're going to be playing the game from that point on. The first decision you've got to make at a war game of Hearts of Iron 4 while playing a neutral nation is how you're going to actually conduct war. So we've got options to begin with, whether we're going to go for a national defense fund or increase the defense budget, resulting either construction for military factories or reduction in consumer goods or potential war support. How you defend Switzerland is a different story, and it's going to be represented by the spirits, similar to the ones that work in the game, but depending on how you choose to rearm Switzerland, in what direction you choose to go, will depend on what bonuses you get. So in this case, reaffirm spiritual defense, and it adds the passive spirit Helvetia, giving you political power, less war support, less recruitable manpower, military factories built slower, and civilian. So it's kind of thinking internally, building on the politics of Switzerland and building on your civilian domestic industry. I presume the different paths are these three, and then there's kind of a more extreme version that comes with it as well that might allow you to build and progress in that one direction a lot more in depth. As you progress through the historical path, it will change to a defensive stance, an aggressive stance if you go alt history, or it might just stay in the passive stance. Each one also has a at war variation and different modifiers for the 6 of them. So this is the passive spirit. This is the war spirit. This is what you get when you're at peace with this spirit, but this is what you get when you're at war with this spirit. So I presume the idea is that this is a spirit that's all about avoiding war and neutrality and probably even pacifism. Minus 20% division organization. Wow, that's freaking brutal. And being at war, you're going to lose 20% stability. So with this, you'll lose 40% stability. Okay, you do not want to be at war with this. So it looks like there's 3 spirits then, and these are the war versions. Depending if the spirits are to do with war, might result in bigger bonuses if you're at war. Or it might even be that these spirits, when at peace, might have big penalties as well. So it might work either way. So now looking on how to do with your neighbors. So you've got Italy, Germany, and France surrounding you. And you just start the game with Austria as well. But Austria is only mentioned very lightly in this focus tree, which I'll mention later. later. So depending on who you choose to side with, depending on who you build borders up, these nations will see it as a threat if you build forts against them. So building forts against, let's say, Italy will result in Italy thinking that you're abandoning neutrality and you're not trying to remain balanced with all the nations that you border. And the result of that will result in a penalty towards that set nation to eventually, if you damage the relations enough with that said nation, they can actually declare war on you. That's right, gains topple government war goal against Switzerland. This is brilliant because it allows war to be incorporated into a neutrality system. There could be an exploit where you actively encourage a nation nearby to declare war on you, therefore to potentially carve them up. Oh, guys, everyone is going to do this to France. Early game, France cause them to declare war on you and therefore to knock them out really quickly because they've got the disjointed government. Omega Swiss controlling Western Europe. I see it, guys. Greater Switzerland confirmed. And of course, if you choose to selectively ban certain political parties, that also have that impact as well. In this case, Germany and Italy getting very, very upset, but also reducing the amount of ticking fascism for Switzerland. So there's a dedicated branch for the militias. I told you there'll be a lot about militia, and this is the dedicated branch to it. Armed neutrality, promoting a certain advisor, fight till death. That's an interesting one. You'll see that in a second. There's only two choices, but then there's the neutral middle path and the left and right, depending on which one you want to go with. Because Switzerland's political system, there's no centralized government powerful enough to conscript a large standing army. But on account of where Switzerland is located, it needs to have an ability to defend itself, or at least deter other countries from invading. This is why historically the Swiss army relied on training their population and giving them the required equipment to keep at home. So when needed, they would take up arms and form militias. This means that you could have up to 20% of the population ready to be deployed in as quickly as 24 hours to stand up to any invaders. This is why historically Switzerland's military needed its own system. Militia. Here we go. Oh, this map is very interesting. Look very closely at this map. What do you see differently here? So first of all, what is this? Impassable terrain to the south towards Italy. This is a very narrow border here. So defending from attacking Italy is going to be dead easy. It's technically only 2 choke points to get through, where the north, on the other hand, is very squishy and the west is squishy too. Switzerland will start with a unique recruitment law giving it 10% recruitable population, but there is no downside. There's no extra training time and there's no damage to the amount of factory output or construction or consumer goods. The only downside is that you can't recruit regular troops. You can have a select number of special forces mountaineers. The rest you'll be relying on will be your citizen militias. To bulk out your army, you can train militias, similar to the battalion type that Italy has. There's no cap on how many divisions you can train. It's locked template. And on top of that, dormant citizen militias' national spirit makes them very weak, but that's okay. You can deal with those issues by earning and spending military readiness. Imagine this. Just close your eyes for imagine. A well-armed militia is great in everything, but they're not drilled around the clock. They're not trained or ready for war. They're technically given basic army training, sent back home to do their normal jobs, and then when they're called up from the militia, it's just a guy with a gun and basic training, and maybe not even got the fitness of someone in the army. So they're not really going to be ready for war when, let's say, Italy comes knocking. When you can train these militias, though, there will be a set division template. It looks like probably at some point as you get down the focus tree, you can make your own templates, because it's going to be kind of railroad. If you can only stay neutral, you can't declare war because you're democratic, and you can only train militias. It's going to feel like such a railroaded playthrough. So there's got to be a way to break away from those things, hopefully. Militias suck, but you can increase military readiness by doing set decisions. Dormant civilian militia, look at these penalties. 50% organization and 70% reduction to division recovery cap. That's really bad. These will break instantly. They'll not even fight for seconds. So initially what will happen is when you call up the militia, when someone's declare war on you, your militias will all more than likely appear, but they'll suffer from this big penalty. It's your responsibility to motivate the troops to give them more military readiness, which I presume reduces this penalty. So you can give a speech, military training drive, costing you command power and political power, supply them with distributing guns, costing you 200 guns. I believe this is the ahistorical path, but it's down the historical path. Historical, ahistorical, I don't know which, but it's one of the paths you can go down, which wasn't the historical path that Switzerland did, and it gives a big bonus to organization, army recover again. So this is probably making the most of the militia that you've got. They will still suffer from big penalties, but this will kind of give them a little bit of a boost. Army regain 20% is cool. Core territory 10%. Core territory defense is always decent. You can get 30% of it for China against Japan. That's just pretty brutal. Doesn't show any of this, but it makes a mention that there aren't any field marshals for Switzerland. They just have generals, and there's only one general. Will it make any difference to the gameplay? I'm not certain, but from reading this, they've not actually shown any visuals. One thing to know, depending on different focuses you go down, it can also give boosts for military readiness. In this case, military readiness by going for this chief of army. 50% extra defense, that's amazing. Army experience gain 0.40, that's really high per day. So every 3 days, you're going to gain like 1 point of army XP. So one big path that Switzerland played in the war was espionage. They wanted to look like they weren't pro-allies or pro-Axis or even pro-Comintern. So their spy network was tried to remain as non-combative to any of the factions as possible. Makes a reference to the Soviet Union, the Lucy spy ring, which apparently was a spy ring that infiltrated Switzerland and it was working on behalf of the Soviet Union. It makes a reference that that's going to be an alt history path. On the historical part of the focus tree, you have 2 ways of getting a free intelligence agency. This is so cool. Le Resistance has been out for so long. I feel for the most part, there's not a lot of national focuses that really take advantage of it. And giving a free agency is really cool. Why doesn't, for instance, like some of the majors not start off with a free agency? The fact that you've got to recruit them. You started in 1939 and no one's got an agency as well. It's insane. Federal Police Intelligence established an agency of the same name and extended of the existing federal police force, which gives a national spirit with a bonus to counterintelligence and opens the door to SPAB to further counteract foreign intelligence efforts and other fun militaristic alt history stuff. Okay, so it's going to be alt history then in that case. It'll be another part of the focus tree. So the extra 0.01 fascist support is really interesting. So I'm presuming this is going to open the path for fascism then, it looks like. It's kind of cool that this focus creates an intelligence agency, but counterintelligence bonus? Not a fan. Oh, and they've even blurred this focus out here. What don't you want us to see, Paradox? So it makes a reference to this one. I'm not going to pronounce it, but it mentions building spy networks in other countries. It's going to be interesting to see what those bonuses are going to look like because it doesn't show any. The only one they show is the very top one, which grants a reduction of counterintelligence. So it's kind of thinking more outly than internally. An intel network strength gain plus 25%. Wow, that's really strong. So you gain a 25% network gain bonus factor from having a double agent that's of that nationality. So let's say you recruit a German double agent and you're the UK and you can build a network 25% quicker. So this will be 25% on top of 25%. It's going to be really cool if they choose to update the Le Resistance upgrades. I don't think they will though, because that's a part of another expansion. So probably not. So they've done their best to try and incorporate some of the Swiss political system into HOI 4. And the way it's going to work is you have a choice between 25 political advisors. That's right, 25. You didn't misread that. With at least 10 different character traits. And the way it's going to work is every year you'll have to assign a new political advisor. But then you'll have to retire it permanently after that year. Which is going to be strange because it means aren't you eventually going to run out of advisors? But 25, that's 25 years, I guess. So I don't know. The way it will work is that when that advisor retires, then you will get an additional 1 year effect on top of that, something relating to what that advisor was giving you. So I don't know, let's say war industrialist gets 10% construction for military factories. Then when you retire him, he gains a 20% construction bonus for military factories for 1 year. And then you do it with all the advisors and they'll gain sequential bonuses. And it says it's going to be a powerful decision. Okay, so it's not actually going to be just a passive bonus. Really difficult to see how this is going to work without actually showing the example. And there is no visible example, but this is really cool because it's a different system. And it implies with that national spirit that we saw before that these advisors will be free. So it's going to be cool to get a bonus, but it's going to be sad to lose them after a year and never get them back again. More about that on the next Dev Diary. The Swiss Democratic Tradition campaign, giving you loads of dirty stability, lose your war support, and gain extra democracy. So it looks like there's going to be specific, unique decisions for boosting stability and maybe war support as Switzerland, which is always good to see. Like whenever you make a nation feel unique, it's always going to feel good. It's a shame they're not going to do that with some of the existing focus trees. Now, as time's going on, when we look back at the USA focus tree, the France one, or even the UK one, and definitely the German one, we look at them now and we're like, man, these focus trees are really basic in comparison to how advanced this is. It's going to be strange. Hey, there's a lot of time to go on and maybe many more DLCs to come. Who knows? There is something very interesting about this map, though. You can see this. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 stakes in Switzerland here. And there's also a new one here for Austria as well. That implies there's going to be territorial gains possible for Switzerland. It looks like, I'm going to make a prediction here, shot in the dark, you somehow side with the Germans, and when an Anschluss happens, you gain this state. That's how it's looking to me. I'm sticking a complete guess. We'll see if I'm right. And it makes a reference here to show the impassable borders. Okay, now we zoomed back. This looks completely different. So we've got this one here, and then there's another small one here. Wow. So now the classic tactic, I say it's a classic tactic. It's a tactic that I've done, is you break the Alps and invade little weak Italy, and then you kind of circle around and push through the Alps to push into Germany. That looks like it's going to be a lot harder now. Paradox. I'm going to put my hands together now. I'm going to make a wish. I'm going to pray. Please look at the battle plan code for these front lines, okay? Please look at them. At the moment, we have loads of issues with when battle plans run into these, you have to redraw your battle plans all over again. Please look into this. It might be hard-coded. They might not be able to fix it. But the truth is what will happen is if you're France pushing through Italy and you push through here, the battle plans go all weird because you've just smashed the battle plans into two, and then you'll have a front line that's open and you forget about it like I usually do. Is it fixable? I don't know. But everyone's experienced that if you played the game for at least an hour. Here is the big surprise at the end, gentlemen. We have the very first dog focus tree, and it gives bonuses to field hospitals. Will field hospitals be worthwhile? What does this actually mean? Who is St. Bernard? Comment below. Let us know, boyos. It's definitely alt history. It says slightly alt history. Next week's focus tree will be Ethiopia. And then more than likely, we'll probably be looking at Italy's, Ethiopia's, and Switzerland's alt history paths. Because at the moment, we've talked a lot about features, and we've not talked so much about focus tree. So lots of focus tree dev diaries are on the way. Guys, if you do enjoy this kind of content, let me know by liking and subscribing. Comment below something you're excited about, anything in the focus tree I may have missed. If I mispronounced something, you get to laugh in the comments really loud. Apart from that, have a good day. I'll see you soon. Bye. Everyone who loved this video also loved this one. Give it a click.